Whoop whoop! We are live, and I'm gonna wait. I'm actually on time for the first time in a long time. I have my little beastie sitting here, so I hope that he's good throughout the live. He's a little bit needy. Hey girl. So I'm just gonna wait for everyone to join that's gonna join. I had a question request come in the DMs, so I'm gonna answer her request first while any other questions are coming in. Hey Katya, how are you? Katya has like amazing results the past 2 months. She like sent me a picture of before and after, and I'm just like so proud of you. But somebody sent me a DM and asked if, sorry, like my hand's back here because I'm like petting my dog. If I don't, he's gonna yelp. So somebody asked, she's post-birth control, and she asked if there's any hope for post-birth control melasma. So for those of you guys that don't know what melasma is, it's like hyperpigmentation, and she didn't specify where it is, but I'm assuming it's on her face. People also call them like liver spots or sunspots, and it's really just hyperpigmentation caused by estrogen. I deeply believe that melasma is driven by estrogen and polyunsaturated fat intake, because we have to think of how food or how our skin is reacting with the sun and how that pigmentation is going to occur. So estrogen tends to be the driving factor. This is why, like, when you take birth control and you read through the pamphlet, it says, do not be careful, like with UV sun exposure. It obviously depends on the brand, but a lot of times they'll say, like, please avoid UVB beds at all costs, like tanning beds. So it does take time. It's very important to get your progesterone levels checked. It's very important to check your estrogen levels to support liver detoxification. So this same girl also said that she started experimenting with grass-fed liver supplements for giving herself vitamin A and supporting her liver. And she started with the Ancestral Supplements brand, and their recommended dose is 6 capsules. But she started with 1, and she said that she felt like absolute trash. So this is just speculation, but it sounds like your liver has quite the number on it. If you're struggling with melasma and you feel like your liver health is really struggling, then there probably is an excess estrogen issue, lots of estrogen in relationship to progesterone. I don't think you should push it necessarily, and maybe you need something a little bit more gentle, like chlorophyll, for a little while until you can tolerate 1 capsule, and then you go up to 2. You should never do something if it's like absolutely so uncomfortable. Ask yourself also, if you're struggling with estrogen dominance issues or liver issues, are you constipated? Are you pooping every single day, having a full and satisfying bowel movement? If not, that's the first goal. And then you would maybe want to implement supplements that are going to be like actual pushers of liver detoxification. But until then, you want to be very gentle and just make sure you're having a bowel movement every single day. Okay, so Darling Rose Photo says, I've always struggled with acne, brittle nails, and struggle with losing weight. Any tips on what I should have checked or what I should focus on to get balanced? Yeah, so it's like one of those things where lab tests are helpful, and you want to check in with like a full thyroid panel that includes free T3 and reverse T3. But sometimes these issues can't just be measured with like the traditional blood test. Sometimes you can see some indicators. So, it's a good idea to get progesterone levels checked, like post-ovulation, 5 to 7 days after ovulation. But at the end of the day, if let's say all those things come back normal, that doesn't mean everything's balanced and normal, right? And so this is why I came out with Fully Nourished. This is why I believe that nourishing yourself is the foundation. I find that, blood tests can say this or that or this, but at the end of the day, a nutrient-dense diet is the foundation. Regardless of what you're trying to correct, you need a foundational nutrient-dense diet. You also need the proper lifestyle habits. You've got to be getting sunlight. You've got to be drinking clean, unchlorinated, unfluoridated water as much as possible. You've got to try to get as much plastic out of your life as possible. Like, try to slowly over time change your environment and reduce your exposure to take some burden off of the body. But I would say like my first step would be is always remove wheat from the diet. If you're going to do grains, always making sure they're heirloom, like spelt, einkorn, or gluten-free grains that are preferably sprouted or fermented properly, or being pretty much like I always say, like, I guess my diet would be kind of modified paleo in a way, like not meat heavy, but really whole foods, lots of fruits, lots of root vegetables, some well-cooked greens here and there, and, high quality like eggs, dairy, fish, shellfish, and some meat like lots of broths, gelatin, collagen. So you really want to be eating as many whole foods as possible first thing first. But brittle nails and acne a lot of times have to do with mineral imbalances. So acne a lot of times has to do with like bacterial imbalance in the gut or skin, and iron is feeding that bacterial imbalance. Liver inflammation and gut issues are preventing detoxification of heavy metals and toxins, and so it's coming out the skin. Are you constipated or having really good bowel movements? For acne, one of my favorite easy tips is eating a raw carrot every single day. For brittle nails, that's a little bit harder to figure out. Sometimes it has to do with zinc. Sometimes it has to do with fat-soluble vitamins like vitamins A, D, and K. Are you eating high-quality dairy? Are you eating lots of fresh fruits and root vegetables, lots of minerals and vitamins, nutrient-dense foods? And then if by any means like it doesn't improve, then that's when you would maybe want to dig deeper. I'm actually right now digging into, I've been really wanting to learn hair mineral analysis a lot better. I've used it before, but I didn't really, I'm not like an expert at it. So I am taking a course right now that's helping me learn HTMA, hair trace mineral analysis, which is like small hair samples which show you your minerals and your metabolic function for the past 4 months instead of like a snapshot in time like a blood test. And I'm hoping that it's a very low cost test, you guys. So it's $60 compared to some of my other functional labs, which are like $250, $350, $400. So it's fairly affordable way to start getting a good idea of what's going on with your thyroid, your adrenals, your mineral levels, and start making a lot of strides. So I'm hoping that when I start offering this in my practice in about a month and a half, it's something that can help you guys maybe dig a little deeper into your health rather than spending all this money on functional labs and all this money on things that you're not really sure if it's going to get you the answers that you need. But I think that brittle nails has a lot to do with minerals and absorption of minerals. And so if you're struggling with acne, losing weight, and brittle nails, I would probably look to the gut and the liver. That would be my guess, my opinion, my speculation. That would probably be where I would guess the issues are occurring. Mano Wellness says, reoccurring Candida, I've done it all. I'm not restrictive. I still eat natural sugars. I've done so much research on it and just keep having a reoccurrence. So do you test for it, first of all? Do you know it's Candida or is it bacteria? A lot of times people think they have yeast and they know they have yeast, but they also have bacteria and other pathogens, low stomach acid. Are you on a vegan diet? A lot of times people that are on vegan diets have recurring SIBO and Candida because your stomach acid is so low. You need adequate protein levels in order to have high stomach acid. You also need adequate taurine, which taurine cannot be found in anything but animal foods, and adequate levels of zinc and iodine, which unfortunately zinc and iodine, in a perfect world where our soil was really rich in minerals, we would be able to get enough of those things from a plant-based diet, but we can't. And so important to make sure your diet is, first of all, well-rounded so that your metabolism works properly, but also your stomach acid, your pancreas all work right, because you want pancreatic enzymes. You need bile flow, and taurine is required for bile flow, and then you need stomach acid, and zinc is specifically needed for stomach acid production as well as high-quality bioavailable proteins. So if there's recurring Candida, a lot of times I dive deeper into where the diet, what's missing in the diet, what's going on with the diet that's missing. First of all, if there's nothing truly missing, I know you said you're not restrictive, it's good that you still eat natural sugars, because starving Candida, you don't really starve Candida, you just starve yourself in the process, so that's really good. I would look to a more hormonal issue, and I would look to a nutrient issue. What's missing, what's kind of breaking down in the system, and then how are your temperatures and pulses. So I would start measuring your waking temperature and pulse, your after breakfast temperature and pulse, and your afternoon temperature and pulse, and I would see where your metabolism is at. Optimal levels should be, keep in mind you want your temperatures and your pulse in optimal levels. So temperature is going to be 97.6 to 98, or 97.8 to 98.6. And then your pulse, you kind of want it in between that 75 to 90 mark. If you have a high temperature and a normal pulse, or a high pulse and a normal temperature, that does not mean things are okay. You want them to both be in that optimal range and gradually rise throughout the day. If they're low, your body's missing something and your body's not getting what it needs to thrive, because that heat production, that metabolic heat is produced by your cells, shows you that you have optimal function. And so if those temps and pulses aren't reflecting, I mean, obviously it's not like a medical diagnosis. You're just kind of using it to check in with like your overall health. And it's a great way to kind of gauge how you're doing on a day-to-day basis. It's more of like a tool that you can use to track. That is the first thing I start with. And then I also, like I said, I would comb through the diet, see what could be missing, what could be affecting stomach acid, bile flow, things that keep fungus and pathogens out of the body or in the places they need to be. Also, like, I look at, okay, are you doing tons of fermented foods, but then your transit time is slow? A lot of people are like doing fermented foods, and then food is moving so slowly through their digestive tract that stuff is just like fermenting and rotting. So there's a lot of like little caveats. If there's recurring candida, there's something off your body doesn't have, or maybe thyroid function is low, which is super common amongst women, and thyroid function is going to be what protects you from pathogens in the first place. Question: my vitamin D is low, 19. My naturopath recommended 5,000 IU of vitamin D. I researched and I'm so confused. Should I take the vitamins or stay away from them and bathe in the sun? I personally think that bathing in the sun is the best option. Synthesizing your own vitamin D is so much better. A lot of times vitamin D is low because of the liver. Also, a lot of times doctors only run one test, which is 25 OH vitamin D. And you want to also run the 100 OH vitamin D, because there are caveats to vitamin D levels. It's not like, one level just says, your vitamin D is low, you need to supplement. It's more like, why is this low? Is the body utilizing the other type of vitamin D, synthesizing the other vitamin D? There's so many little caveats. And so sometimes supplementing vitamin D can be a little more harmful than good. It's of course important to have enough vitamin D. And if you're not getting sunlight, then maybe a supplement is a good idea. But if you have access to sunlight, I think that sunlight is always the best. And then eating like vitamin D rich foods, like really high quality dairy, specifically some milk, doing like a little bit in eggs, there's like a little bit, but mostly milk and liver tend to be like really good sources of vitamin D, like food sources. First period since stopping birth control, and it's crazy heavy. Any suggestions? Yeah, like that's so common. You want to really start tracking. So when you're post-birth control, it's so important to start tracking ovulation, because you want to make sure you go back to ovulating, which is going to provide you with that progesterone that's going to kind of help block out estrogen. I also really like vitamin E for helping with estrogen issues, a raw carrot every single day, eating lots of anti-inflammatory foods, collagen, bone broth, high quality meats, high quality eggs, good coconut oil, ghee, grass-fed butter. All those anti-inflammatory, like really high quality fats are going to be really good. Root vegetables are also awesome for binding to estrogen, like sweet potatoes, yams, carrots, like I already mentioned, beets, things like that. Fruit fibers are also excellent. So just a really good, well-rounded diet that's nutrient dense. And then adding in like extra support when necessary. Vitamin E is one of my favorites. What else? Chlorophyll. So adding chlorophyll and lemon to water is really helpful. Just really supporting the liver overall is going to be your best friend. I also like vitamin C, like a natural vitamin C powder, which I just recently talked about on Friday. I'm going to post my most recent stories on SIBO, vitamin C, and I did another one, hirsutism, on my story highlights, so you guys can go back and rewatch. But yeah, I talk about the vitamin C powder that I like, and that tends to be really supportive of the liver post-birth control. By the way, I always leave early on Wednesday so I can hear your live calm without interruptions at home. You're so sweet. A lot of people tell me like their like Wednesday routine, and you guys always like plan your Wednesday nights around my live, and I really appreciate it. I think you guys are so sweet. Is it safe for a woman with breast implants to do castor oil packs? This is like something I really struggle with, because I recently saw, so about 2 months ago, I came across an article that was talking about how castor oil is very, very powerful at pulling things out of the body, including implants. Before, I had no idea that it was that powerful at pulling any kind of implant. So before that, I had no idea, and I was just recommending Castor Oil Packs regardless of, I didn't know that I was supposed to ask if people had implants or not, and a lot of practitioners also don't know. I'm not sure, and I can't really find a lot of information on it. I asked my doctor, and she was just like, yeah, like, I don't see why that would be a problem. So I kind of just say, like, ask your doctor. I don't know how accurate that article was. Like, it was just trying to say, like, it's so powerful at pulling, toxins out of the body. But I was just so worried because I saw, like, implants, like surgical implants, and I thought, I really want to be safer over sorry, and just make sure that women with implants kind of like tread lightly and are very careful. I don't see how a castor oil pack could be powerful enough to like pull a breast implant out, but again, I'm kind of like, I would rather be safer than sorry. So I really can't find like a definitive answer as if yes or no. There are plenty of people that I've met that have breast implants that have done castor oil packs. So again, I try to be like err on the side of caution, just out of like safety and being careful. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. And I don't want to say that I do know, because I just really can't find a definitive answer. Can you speak of ways to help symptoms when trying to come off antidepressants? Can you talk a bit about them in general? Thank you. Yeah, so antidepressants, it's one of those things where, like, I never want people to feel like I'm bashing them necessarily. I just think it's important to understand that, this idea that serotonin is the happy hormone is just really not that accurate. And serotonin reuptake inhibitors, which is what antidepressants are, allow you to reuptake serotonin in the digestive tract. So you're not just now creating serotonin, you are now reuptaking something that your body's trying to maybe get rid of, or your body is trying not to be as sensitive to. And some antidepressants are also noradrenaline uptake inhibitors, so they actually have you reuptake the neurotransmitter adrenaline as well. So it's not my area of expertise. I think that there's a really good book out by Dr. Kelly Brogan called A Mind of Your Own. That's a book that I highly recommend people look into. I also recommend doing a little research on SSRIs and just serotonin in general, understanding how serotonin affects you overall. If you DM me and just say like, hey, I need some research on serotonin after this live, I'll send you a few links and a few articles that you can kind of look into a little further. But overall, I think A Mind of Your Own by Dr. Kelly Brogan is a really good place to start. She talks a lot about like how they affect your health, and then how to slowly transition off of them if that's right for you. But we have to understand that being depressed is a state of being, and being depressed has a lot to do with lack of sunlight. It has a lot to do with lack of certain nutrients. Not to say that antidepressants are never appropriate, because there are times when they absolutely are, and they save people's lives. So again, it's like one of those things where it's important to get to the root cause, but there's nothing wrong with antidepressants in the sense that like if we use them, there's something wrong, but they do have impacts on our health that we do need to be aware of. So overall, I would say do a little bit more research, check out that book, and then let me know, and I can send you a few links for you to kind of dig deeper. Jessica says, I'm a nursing mom. Could elevated prolactin due to nursing be causing my PCOS symptoms to be worse? I'm starting FN soon, just trying to decide if I should stop nursing to really get my hormones good. Prolactin is one of those things that's called like the breastfeeding hormone, where it tends to be elevated postpartum, but there are a lot of breastfeeding women that don't have like super elevated prolactin. Their prolactin is elevated just enough to breastfeed. So it's one of those things where I wouldn't say like, oh, breastfeeding is causing your issues. A lot of times postpartum parallels with breastfeeding. So they say like, oh, it's just because you're breastfeeding, your prolactin is high. But then why are not all women who breastfeed why don't they all have elevated prolactin, right? So it's kind of saying like, well, breastfeeding equals this. And it's like, there are people that don't have it. So is prolactin truly a breastfeeding hormone, or is it a postpartum hormone that's high because of the stress that was pregnancy and the stress that was labor and that type of thing? So if your prolactin is like through the roof, then I think, like, I don't know, I think that breastfeeding your child is such a gift, and it's something that you can really provide them with a really good future if you're capable of doing it. But again, that is really 100% your choice. And there are ways to get yourself really healthy while you're breastfeeding. So maybe, you know, your prolactin levels would become a little bit more natural, and they wouldn't be so elevated. And you don't even know if the prolactin is what's driving your symptoms or other things are driving your symptoms. You know what I mean? So yeah, like prolactin, we know is a stress hormone in a sense, and it does have a lot of hormonal effects, but there could be other things going on. So maybe just nourishing yourself, getting yourself enough calories, enough balanced meals while you're breastfeeding might take care of a lot of your issues. So you don't really know if it's the breastfeeding causing the issue or it's just making an issue that's already there worse. Regardless, it's kind of what you feel in your gut. I don't really think that, like, you know, I don't know. I don't think that the breastfeeding is the thing that's causing the issue. Maybe there is like slightly elevated prolactin there, but I would say overall balancing your body and supporting your body while you're breastfeeding will a lot of times help with your hormonal issues. What would you recommend to push ovulation back to somewhere in the middle of the cycle rather than day 11, 12? If ovulation is coming a little earlier, the goal is to get your follicular phase a little longer, and a lot of times this takes time. Like, we just need to really take care of our bodies over time, and sometimes we'll find the ovulation is coming a little bit later on. Sometimes if you have really short cycles, that can be an indicator of thyroid issues. If, like, no matter what you do, you know, you change your lifestyle, you change your nutrition, you're really supporting your body, you're really nourishing yourself, and for whatever reason, like, your cycles are still short, at that point you kind of want to ask yourself, like, what could be going on. But keep in mind that a 21 to 35 day cycle is technically considered normal. So an ovulation that happens around day 11 to 12 is not abnormal, especially if you're not having like symptoms or anything like that. I've been drinking whole milk on FN. Is there a real some people may gain weight on it? Why is non-homogenized milk important? Yeah, so some people may gain weight on it just because it is very calorie dense, and if you're using it as like a big part of your protein source, then sometimes people do tend to gain weight. I find that whole milk's the only thing that works for me. When I do like 2%, I just kind of feel like funny, like I don't know, it just doesn't sit as well. So whole milk's the only thing that really sits well for me, and I think it's because the fat's so protective. But that's really a personal thing, and I don't find that I really gain any weight or gain extra weight when I'm drinking whole milk, because I'm not like chugging milk. Like, I might have a glass of milk a day, like that's it. But again, that's kind of relative, and so I bring it up in Fully Nourished because I don't want people to be like chugging whole milk and then being like gaining weight and wondering like, why am I gaining weight? You know, so I just want like people to be thinking like, yeah, it still is like calories do matter, and you don't want to be like consuming excessive liquid calories that you're not burning. And then non-homogenized milk is important if you can access it, because the homogenization process, we have to understand why they homogenize milk. They're pushing, so if you were going to get like traditional milk, a lot of times the fat content rises to the top of the milk, and it'll leave like a fatty layer on top of the more watery milk, because that's just how milk separates over time. And so the processing process pushes these fat globules into the protein through little oxygen bubbles, which allows the milk fat to mix into the milk. And so that's why when you get milk, there's not like a layer of fat on top. You know, traditional or modern milk doesn't have any fat layer. It's just all mixed together because they're trying to make the processing process better. And it's just more, you know, it's just like a westernized thing, honestly. And so it does add oxygenation to the milk. A lot of times this leads to gas, bloating, lots of issues. In addition, the homogenization process also kills something called lactoferrin. It doesn't kill, it destroys. There's a compound in milk called lactoferrin that's specifically meant to bind to iron in babies' guts, because keep in mind, bacteria eat iron, and babies are very susceptible to pathogens and bad bacteria. And so Mother Nature knows that baby's environment needs to, that baby's gut needs to stay really low oxygen and really low iron in order to only allow good bacteria to grow and kind of proliferate the gut. Because keep in mind, guys, babies are born with sterile guts, and so that colostrum that comes out of breast milk first is meant to like really give that mucosal lining a nice lining and prepare that gut for good bacteria. And then the milk that comes afterwards has only good bacteria and specific prebiotics that feed that good bacteria, and the lactoferrin in that milk bind to any iron so that iron cannot feed any bad pathogens. So Mother Nature's got a pretty design to set babies' guts up for a lot of success. And so for people to say that milk is not like a good gut food is really interesting to me, because I'm like, well, babies are born with sterile guts, and the first thing that they're given by nature is milk. And there's a specific reason. It's low iron, and so it prevents pathogenic overgrowth. So that's a long way of saying that we want lactoferrin in our milk, and the homogenization process destroys the lactoferrin, which helps bind to iron and keep the gut nice and healthy. So overall, the homogenization process just kind of like makes milk a little less tolerable and a little less healthy or beneficial for us. Where in the body do you like to put progesterone cream? If I use it all cycle, will I miss ovulation? Sometimes you do miss ovulation when you use it all cycle. It's hard to kind of know. I think like with premenopausal women using progesterone, it's probably a good idea to use it in a cyclical fashion. If you're trying to lower symptoms, it's still a good idea to maybe use less the first half of the cycle and more the second half of the cycle, just so you don't miss ovulation. And it can mess with your periods. Like you might miss a period here and there. It doesn't mean it's doing anything wrong. It's just, it's just gonna maybe mess with ovulation a little bit. So, but that's really relative on the person. And then I like to put it on places where I have stretch marks, because guess what progesterone does? It helps heal stretch marks. So actually, my sister-in-law, she was noticing that she was putting her progesterone cream on, and she was putting on one inner thigh, and that inner thigh all her stretch marks on that inner thigh healed. And she was like, that's weird. Like, why? And she was like, oh my gosh, that's where I put my progesterone cream. So she switched the other inner thigh, and it was just an observation she made. And then I was like, yeah, I kind of noticed that too. And so I've been like, I kind of alternate, put it on places where I have stretch marks. I personally don't take progesterone cream right now. I use an oiled tincture that goes under the tongue. But when I do use a cream, I kind of just switch it up. Use it on thinner skin like my inner arm, or where there's stretch marks or that type of thing. Also, I read the Weston Price diet, and I saw that a lot of people get sick from taking rancid cod liver oil. Yuck. A lot of them died. Yeah, fish oil is pretty rancid, you guys. Like fish oil, like all these people that like promote fish oil and like take fish oil, it's like it's so hard to find fish oil that hasn't gone rancid and is high quality. And all the beneficial properties of fish oil are really related to its immunosuppressive ideas. Keep in mind, they used to use fish oil for people who had like severe autoimmune diseases. They would like put it in their veins like intravenously to calm their immune system down, like almost like an immunosuppressive drug. So it's just like the fish oil like craze is so weird to me. I'm like, avoid. Do you not recommend having raw green salads when following Fully Nourished? I think you should just do what your body craves. I'm not like against green salads at all. I have them from time to time when I crave them, but I don't think like we should obsessively be consuming huge amounts of greens, especially if we have to like force it down or choke it down. But a small side salad to a meal, or if you're really craving a salad, there's nothing wrong with that. I just am not a fan of eating like raw cruciferous vegetables, which includes kale. So I encourage like soft green lettuces, red lettuce, romaine, even some spinach here and there is fine. So yeah, I'm not like against raw green salads. Just make sure they're nourishing, make sure they do contain a carb. Like green salads are not carbs, guys. And they still fill you up and are nourishing. But I'm not against raw salads. Everyone's very different in how they handle greens. So some people like really find that they feel so much better without raw greens. I'm that type of person. Like I don't do well with a lot of raw greens. I find that I don't really digest them that well. But then there's some people that do like excessive amounts and they feel awesome. But the thing is, like the only way to really know is just to experiment. So I really like cooked greens. I think cooked greens are much more like, they're just easier to get the vitamin K from. from, easier to get the calcium from. I like to cook like Swiss chard or like beet greens, spinach in like grass-fed butter or coconut oil, and like cook it down really, really well, or cream it, like cream spinach with some like heavy cream a little bit and some salt and pepper and like garlic powder, and it's just it goes down so much easier, and it like affects your digestion so much easier. But that was a long way of saying, like, I think green salads are fine if you digest them well and you feel great eating them, and especially if you're craving them. Like, don't be like, I can't have a green salad. Like, it's more just like, I think there's like an obsessed culture with like obsessively low calorie foods. Like, you know, just because greens are low calorie doesn't mean that they're good for us, and that's kind of carried over since the 90s. But I don't think like huge amounts of like these raw fibrous veggies are really going to do us much good. What additives should we completely avoid in our foods, even at our health food stores? Sometimes additives are hard to avoid, so what are the most important? It's really about experimenting. So like, I personally know like what gums I don't react to well. So for example, I do not do well with xanthan gum. I get bloated every time. I get my digestive system gets like in knots for like a day or so, and I like find that I just like feel weird and off for like a week. So I know like when I try to avoid the gums as much as possible if I can. Again, I'm not gonna like, let's say a cream cheese has some guar gum in it and it's $3, and the one that doesn't have guar gum is $6. I'm not gonna buy the $6 cream cheese. Sorry, I'm not gonna pay $6 for cream cheese. Can't, sorry. So like at that point I might say, well, a little guar gum in my cream cheese ain't gonna kill me, especially if I'm only having like this much cream cheese. So it's really like one of those things where I try to bring your awareness and Fully Nourished to additives, but I also want you guys using discretion. I want you guys using that balanced mentality where it's not all the time like, oh, it's fine, when your diet is completely full of food additives. But if you're having a little bit here and there and your digestive system seems to be fine, I don't see a problem with it. It's more for people who have constant digestive issues, constant weight gain issues. They can't figure out what's going on with their gut, and they're eating all this health food that's processed and has all these additives in it. And I'm like, yeah, you know, those gums and additives are still going to be an issue. Or for example, the people that come to me on stacks and stacks of supplements full of silica and magnesium stearate and cellulose, and those add up. If you're taking a handful of supplements every day that have food additives, they might be irritating your gut lining a lot. So it's really important to kind of pick and choose what you have and understand how much you're consuming at, every single day at a time. A lot of people are consuming a lot more than they think they are, and so it's a good thing to be aware, but don't like obsess about it or get too scared or weirded out by it. It's just more like pick and choose and be conscious. Craving ice and shedding hair related to iron deficiency. Can fat-soluble vitamins impact iron absorption? Craving ice, shedding hair. That's like a question for your doctor. I know that you said that you had like an issue converting beta-carotene to vitamin A. So I'm wondering if that could be an issue. But craving ice is definitely something that can be an issue. It could be a mineral issue. It could be like you need something crunchy. Like there could be so many issues. So it's important to, like, if you're worried about an iron deficiency, get it checked out. But shedding hair can be related to a lot of things. It can be related to stress. It could be related to eating too many carbohydrates and not enough protein, like in combination, or vice versa, not enough protein in regards to carbs, not eating the right types of fats. I believe you're in Fully Nourished, so I'm wondering, because if you're eating enough grass-fed beef and everything like that, is your digestion okay? Like, there could be so many things. These are just kind of like speculations, but honestly, I'm not sure. Craving ice and shedding hair could be related to a lot of things. Iron deficiency included in that, but a lot of other like minerals. No vegan, normal acid comes out in the form of thrush. So sometimes if we're not doing really good oral health or mouth care, that can really cause us to have some serious yeast issues. So do you coconut oil pull? Do you scrape your tongue? Another good thing is to do water flossing. Do a water flosser and include hydrogen peroxide, tea tree oil in the water, in your water flosser, and make sure you're flossing your teeth really, really well. There are a lot of pathogens that live in the mouth, And a lot of times, actual lack of oral health can actually keep gut issues lingering for a very long time. Also, do you have postnasal drip? Because keep in mind, you guys, when we clear Candida from our sinus or from our gut, they love to hang out in our sinuses so that they can drip back into the digestive system. So if you have Candida in the sinuses, that could be why there's an issue that's recurring. If you have a postnasal drip, then there probably is Candida living in the sinuses, and that's how they're dripping back into the gut. They're very crafty little creatures. They will survive. Like, I always picture like the song I Will Survive, because it's just like they will do whatever it takes, and they are savage. They will actually manipulate your immune system to start attacking itself. They will also manipulate your blood sugar so that you start eating yourself with cortisol and adrenaline and creating sugar for them, and then they eat once your blood sugar raises. So they're little crafty creatures, and you kind of have to start to play, like, especially if there's this recurring yeast issue, you kind of have to start, like, take your time and just, like, keep going at them. But, like, a grapefruit seed extract nasal spray or some type of antibacterial nasal spray, like xylitol spray, can really start to break up those biofilms and get them dead. But you want to, like, start to get to the bottom of why it's recurring, and I would check into the postnasal drip, as well as making sure you are doing oil pulling, tongue scraping, water flossing. Make sure your mouth health is, like, tip top, spick and span, like you've never spent so much time brushing your teeth in your life type of deal. How do I get my partner to be on board with all the changes I've been making in with FN? He thinks some of it is a little too much, like the water filters. Yeah, it's one of those things where you kind of approach it. I always say, like, with partners, it's so important to just kind of, like, as women, we're, like, very on board, right? We're go-getters, we are multitaskers, we are, like, the type of people that just get shit done. Men are, like, God, you guys know, like, it's just, like, God. But for me, I just pick the things that they are on board with. Like, for example, my boyfriend is on board with, it takes forever, but he's on board with good food, right? Like, guys are always on board with good food. So if you can make them good food that they enjoy, that is also good for them, they're usually on board with eating that. Start with the things that you can start to change. For example, like, my boyfriend uses lotion, so I just switch his lotion out, and I say, like, hey, do you like that lotion I got you? And he's like, yeah, it's fine. Okay, yes, good, we're good, you know? Hey, do you like that deodorant I got you? Yeah, it's fine. Yes, good. You know, like, I slowly, like, start to change things, and as long as he's not, like, you know, it doesn't make him uncomfortable, or he's like, that doesn't really work, we just keep going, you know? And if something doesn't work, he'll, like, kindly let me know, like, you know, I didn't really like that toothpaste, like, that didn't really work that well, and that's fine, you know? So it's one of those things where I don't really, like, force it. And for the things that are, like, you know, you don't agree on, it's kind of one of those things where you kind of have to figure out what your partner responds to best. So does he need to see some type of visuals? Find a YouTube video that you think will get him. Like, you know his personality. Does he need to see research studies? Send it to him. For the water filters, it's simply, like, explain that chlorine and fluoride is very, very hard on our endocrine glands and depletes us of lots of minerals that we need. And, you know, tap water, just because you can't see pathogens doesn't mean they're not there. You know, you can, like, do the whole, like, teaching moment. But again, it's one of those things where choose the things, like, pick your battles and choose the things that he's willing to change first, and you can change the other things later, because once he sees those things are working and changing his health, he's going to be more on board. You know, if he's, like, losing some weight, he's sleeping better, he has more energy, he's going to be like, this stuff works, you know, like, it's in front of his very eyes, and so he'll be more able to respond. But, you know, think of it, you've only been fully nourished for what, like a month or so. It's a lot in a month, you know, whereas, like, you're on board with the stuff, you listen to my lives, you probably follow other people and listen to other people, like, you're immersed in it, where he's probably like, what? Like, I need to filter my water and spend all this money filtering it. So it's just kind of one of those things where pick your battles, choose the things that he's willing to kind of work with, and then slowly implement the things that are going to be a little harder to, like, get him on board with. That's my, I guess, would be how I personally would approach it, and how I do approach it. I read that chlorophyll can help prevent kidney stones. Can it do the same for tonsil stones? I believe so. I wouldn't, like, I don't want to say, like, absolutely, because everyone's so different as to why they have tonsil stones, but a lot of times things that help with kidney stones also help with like calcium deposits throughout the body. So I haven't seen, I've seen crazier things, but it's like, I guess it's, it's like one of those things where it's definitely worth a try. I've started incorporating chlorophyll. Can you speak to its benefits? Yeah, so it's we call, like, I guess in the health and wellness community, we call chlorophyll plant blood. It's very, very rich in oxygen, and it's very, very, very rich in phytonutrients. It's also rich in enzymes, and they kind of mimic the enzymes that your liver uses to detoxify. And so providing your body with extra enzymes just kind of takes burden off the body having to use its own enzymes. And so I really think that it's helpful to provide small little nutrients that help your body do what it needs to do, especially if it's already having a harder time or it's burdened with extra junk. It's also an internal deodorizer. I find that like people that struggle with bad BO or even like vaginal smell, like if there's a fishy odor, it really, really does help clear toxins. It's just very rich in the green phytochemicals, as well as like magnesium, calcium, minerals like zinc, things like that. So it's like a concentrate, like what you would, the benefits that are found in like leafy greens, it's concentrated into chlorophyll because it's almost like sucking those plants' blood in a sense. Always have a belly bloat, have lean PCOS, but always bloated even before meals. I remember you mentioned something about low progesterone and belly bloat. Also have pain over pancreas when eating fat. Yeah, I mean, so like belly bloat can be due to a lot of different things. It can be due to low progesterone. A lot of times if you have low progesterone and the bloat is related to that, the bloat tends to get worse during the luteal phase. So before your period, like the week before, you tend to feel like you're just retaining water all over and you're really bloated. But if you always have a belly bloat, even before you eat, but it gets worse after you eat, 9 times out of 10, that's due to some gut issues. If it's a high bloat, like more, I guess would say like where you would think your stomach is, like underneath your breast, then that can have a lot to do with small intestine. And then if it's like really high, because keep in mind your large intestine kind of goes around in like a U-shaped around your small intestine. So you kind of have to pinpoint where your bloat is. Is it low? Is it high? And if you have pain in your pancreas, like I would definitely do some research on pancreatic enzymes. That can sometimes be really helpful. If you're having a hard time digesting fat, it could be like due to like low pancreatic function. Keep in mind that polyunsaturated fats really damage the pancreas. They really damage the beta cells and the things that produce pancreatic enzymes. So it's just important to kind of know what your past is, but I would definitely do some research on pancreatic enzymes and maybe ask your doctor about them. And that could also be like if you have low pancreatic enzyme function, you have low bile flow, then you could technically have like some small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. That is a possibility. Again, that's just me like kind of sharing my opinion and speculation. It's hard to say, but if you have like a constant bloat that doesn't go away, there could be some more gut issues. I'm in perimenopause at 50. I'm bleeding every 2 weeks. Can you explain why? Thank you. So a lot of times when you go through perimenopause, the biggest misconception about menopause is that you lose all hormone production. No, you don't lose estrogen production because other tissues and your fat cells all create estrogen. But guess what's the only thing that creates progesterone? Well, your ovaries and your adrenal glands in a little way, but not enough to make a difference. And so progesterone is a menopausal woman's very best friend because estrogen is what thickens that uterine lining and progesterone is going to be what kind of thins it. So I think that progesterone is something that is very helpful to menopausal women. I also think that pregnenolone is something that menopausal women should maybe do some research on and look into to really just help them age well and to feel, protects their bones, protects their skin, keeps them youthful, keeps them alert, protects their thyroid, things like that. But a lot of times it has to do with thyroid issues or low progesterone because constant bleeding has to do with the thyroid, and progesterone stimulates the thyroid. So I would really get the progesterone levels checked. If you kind of know, then, you could always ask your doctor about bioidentical progesterone supplementation. I would even look into pregnenolone as well. Healthy Balance Gina says, what are the best fruits for your gut if you have ongoing undiagnosed so far gut issues, in your opinion? In my opinion, I like tropical fruit excluding bananas. So bananas tend to be like, they are high histamine and they're kind of allergenic. And, you know, unfortunately, a lot of us don't have like a banana tree in our backyard where we can go pick a fresh banana. So a lot of times bananas are picked very underripe and allowed to ripen or sprayed with ripening gas, which not like very great for our health. So in my opinion, tropical fruits like mango, papaya, even a little bit of pineapple, even though sometimes it can be too acidic for other people, but like, or for people, and even coconut, if it works well for you, can all be kind of really easy to digest. I also like stone fruits. So things like plums, peaches, nectarines, especially if they're cooked. Oh man, they're so easy to digest as long as they're ripe. What else do I like? Berries can kind of be on the fence. So sometimes keep in mind, berries are super fibrous. That's why people are always like, eat your berries because they're low glycemic. And I'm like, yeah, but they're also like super high in fiber and they can kind of be irritating. So if berries bug you, that could be why. And I would stick to more like stone fruits like cherries, peaches, nectarines, plums, and then tropical fruits. Those tend to be my favorite. They're really gentle fibers. They can help with constipation. And you can usually find them frozen, so they're nice and ripe, and they're also like delicious, like so good. I've been like buying this organic tropical fruit mix at Costco that's like peaches, pineapple, mango, and strawberry, and I'm just like like I just want to eat it every day. And I like mix it in a smoothie with some collagen and some raw milk and a little OJ and some coconut oil. It makes it taste like a pina colada. So good. But yeah, best fruits for gut are going to be like cooked fruits, any cooked fruits, so like applesauce, baked apples, baked pears, and then the tropical fruits and the stone fruits. If we've been off dairy for a while now, how much eggshell calcium should I supplement? I think it's important to not go overboard, on calcium, and to be kind of conservative with it. It can really irritate the digestive system, so it's important to do it with some type of food and not on an empty stomach. I would kind of experiment. I would do a little research and figure out what you think is right for you. But I think like starting with just like a small amount, like I think in Fully Nourished, I say like 1/8 of a teaspoon. And I think that is a great place to start. And then you can always try a little more, just always being very gentle and conservative, and then working your way up based on how you feel. But again, I think a small amount is obviously better than none at all or very little. Hashimoto's TPO 59, it was 73 a few months ago. Woo, so you got it down. Free T4 and T3 in range, but not sure how optimal. Low blood pressure, low heart rate, recurrent losses. What should I be asking my new endo since family doctor says I'm fine? You should be asking for your progesterone levels. You should also be asking for your free T3 and your reverse T3. You should also get your iodine checked. That is so important. So those are kind of my 4 things. Check your progesterone post-ovulation. So you don't just want to check your progesterone anytime. You want it 5 to 7 days after you ovulate, because it shouldn't be low. It should be about 8 nanograms per deciliter or a little more. And then your free T3 should be like around 3. You want a 3 to 4 is a good range. Reverse T3, technically anything above 15 shows that cortisol could be converting your free T3 into reverse or inactive T3. So those are the kind of things you want to make sure that you don't have subclinical hypothyroidism, which I know you said you have low blood pressure, low heart rate. What about your temperatures? Are they low? Because if that's the case, then you kind of do have it's like, even if it's not technical hypothyroidism, like that's kind of hypothyroidism, Maybe your cells are not uptaking T3 that well. So those are the things I would check first. And then going from there, it's kind of like, okay, what's the answer to those questions? And then, sorry, my dog is like so needy. I would move on like, okay, how can I nourish myself better? What do I need to restore? If iodine is low, that can be a huge deal for both thyroid function, Hashimoto's, and also, losses. So that's where I would start. And if progesterone is low, that could be the reason why the losses are occurring. I'm very sorry for your losses. I asked this on the FN Facebook page, but thought this might be easier. Thoughts on alkaline water, full house filter in general, but also as it relates to stomach acid and digestion. It's one of those things where it's like, it's not technically the best, but how, alkaline whole house filters tend to like only make your water alkaline for like the first like couple months, and then they kind of start to like not make your water so alkaline. So I wouldn't stress about it. It can be kind of detoxifying at first, but also drinking alkaline water long term can have some impairment on some people's digestive tracts and guts. I try to stay away from it as much as possible. If you asked it in the Facebook group, I would probably answer it more in depth, but I like reverse osmosis filters, especially ones that have remineralizers, or if you're remineralizing it yourself by adding like sea salt or trace minerals drops. But alkaline is kind of more of those things where I'm not like pro alkaline. If it just comes with it and it's kind of something you can't control, like who cares? But at the same time, like natural spring water, for example, like if you were going to go like collect your water from a spring, it's going to be like slightly acidic pH, because that's just how water is. But again, I'm not like stressed about it. I'm not like, oh my gosh, it's going to be so bad. But I have seen people who drink out like alkaline water or have like Kangen filters, and they're like, I drink like so alkaline or even like more alkaline than normal water all the time. And they tend to have like some digestive issues because their hydrochloric acid and their acidity overall is kind of messed up. But I'm not like crazy about it. It's like one of those things where I'm like, you really can't find enough research to tell you yes or no. It's more like everyone has an opinion. I tend to go by Dr. Mercola's opinion though. Like he has some really good points that he brings up. He has like this long YouTube talk on it. So if you haven't checked that out, that's something I would check out. Should we be concerned with warnings for ulcer with daily aspirin? Do you know any Canadian brands similar to Jerry Care? Yeah, you should always be concerned when you're taking anything. Like you should always be informed, and you should always be paying attention. Usually like baby aspirin, or if you're taking it with food and you're making sure you're restoring your glycine levels, keep in mind aspirin depletes glycine and it depletes vitamin K2. But as long as your doctor's on board and you're making sure you're getting enough glycine, which comes in the form of collagenous foods like bone broth, gelatin, collagen, that type of thing, and then getting enough vitamin K2 tends to be not a problem. But again, that's not true for everyone. So it's important to kind of pay attention. And then for Canadian brands, like you just want to turn around, look at the ingredients, and find something that has the least amount of ingredients as possible and additives. And some people do better with like an enteric coated aspirin. Like Jerry Care is only starch and aspirin, doesn't have a coating, but some people do have like digestive upset, and so they do better with a coated aspirin. So it just kind of depends on the person. What do you think about homemade fruit infused water? I use frozen fruit. That sounds delicious, and that is such a wonderful idea. I don't know. I thought about it like a while ago, and now I'm thinking about it right now, and you have just, that sounds delicious. I think that sounds like something I want to do tonight for tomorrow. Just purchased Doctor's Best Serapeptase for endo and uterine polyps. Says to take on an empty stomach, but when eating so frequently on FN, what would be the best time to take it? So I usually say like an hour after food and an hour before food. So if you're leaving like 2 hours between your like breakfast and snack, for example, or like your snack and lunch, then I would just take it an hour after a snack and an hour before lunch, if that makes sense. So just kind of like an hour away on both sides. This like needy guy is just like, oof, sorry. He needs me to like pet his belly at all times. Thanks to Fully Nourished, I'm seeing that I may have low thyroid function. I hate doctors and know I should get in and get tested, but are there natural ways to get the thyroid to function better, or am I doomed? Not doomed. It's one of those things where I think that food is the foundation. Some people really do like see results with just eating frequently over time. It can take like 6 to 8 weeks, even more like 12, to really see big results with thyroid function based on temperatures and pulse. But I've seen people like literally, I've like gotten off my thyroid medication just recently from following FN. For the first time in like 4 years, I stopped taking Nature-Throid from just like supplementing some iodine, making sure I'm supplementing vitamin C. The 3 main thyroid nutrients, or 4, are going to be zinc, vitamin C, zinc, vitamin C, selenium, and iodine. And so making sure you have all 4 of those on top of a nutrient-dense diet where you're really fueling yourself well every 2 to 3 hours is very powerful for thyroid function. I've always been afraid to get off my Nature-Throid, and I've always kind of like put it off because I didn't want to like, I knew I had to do the work first before I like tried to transition off. But it's been 5 days off and I actually feel like really good, and my hair is like getting very like a little bit more hydrated. So I'm seeing it to kind of change, which is really awesome. So overall, I'm not like obsessing. It's not like I'm trying not to be like placebo effecty, but I've seen a lot of results from it myself, and I know a lot of people have seen results. So I think it's good to get tested, but it's one of those things where I don't think like, you want to get tested at some point, and if you need natural desiccated thyroid or thyroid medication, that's something that, you should do. But at the same time, like, if you're feeling good and you're seeing changes, and that is possible. It's possible to change your thyroid function and conversion with just food and lifestyle. Which progesterone tincture do you personally use under the tongue? I use Ona's natural progesterone, ONA''S. I get it directly from our website. I usually use a compounded one, but I've been like experimenting with hers. And don't judge me on the bottle, okay? I'm just warning you right now. Just don't judge me on the bottle. But it actually works really, really well. I find that I need to take a lot less of the tincture than I do my capsule of oral progesterone. So that is kind of my favorite. And I know that Tony's saying, like, is there a difference to taking medication? Keep in mind that thyroid medication, you guys, it is supportive, but thyroid medication doesn't change the fact that our cells aren't uptaking thyroid properly, if that's the case, or it does help with hypothyroidism symptoms, but it's not fixing hypothyroidism. Because if you go off of something and you have symptoms as bad as before, it didn't fix anything, right? It was just like helping with the symptoms. There's nothing wrong with helping with symptoms, but medication is not always the answer, especially if it's making things worse, which a lot of people do see thyroid medication make things worse. Can you save this to a highlight, please? I'm like at the mercy of Instagram these days with my lives. They sometimes save, they sometimes don't. So I'm praying that this saves, and then it will be uploaded onto YouTube if it saves. I was having month-long horrible periods when overdoing polyunsaturated fats. After switching to cooking to saturated fats, it stopped. Such a simple change made a huge difference. Woo! Saturated fats are where it's at. I don't care what anyone says. My clients see so many results, and so is everyone in Fully Nourished. Like, I'm just like, maybe it's just placebo, but no, it's not science. But everyone would have you believe that, like, I'm crazy for saying that. I've been eating really good, but I've noticed that I haven't been as regular as I was when I was eating bad. What am I doing wrong? I would make sure you're eating enough. That's a big one. Sometimes when we try to eat better, we're eating less calories than we were before. Even though the ones before were bad calories or from like non-nutrient dense foods, the ones that we're doing now, we're just not doing enough. Our body does need adequate calories. I usually say, like, no woman should be eating really under like 1,700, really 1,800. But if your metabolism isn't working well and you eat too much, you will gain weight. So it's important to kind of be, I guess, conservative, especially if you're eating very little, and slowly move it on up. But yeah, regular periods are very reliant on stress levels. So if we're not eating enough, our body's going to be stressed, even if we don't feel stressed. If we're over exercising, our body's going to be stressed. If we're not getting enough sunlight, if we're like in toxic relationships. But if you've noticed that the biggest thing is the change in eating, what did you change? What are the fats that you changed to? Did you replace all your carbs with like vegetables? Are you eating a lot less carbs than you were before? What types of proteins are you eating? So maybe you're not eating the right things for your body, and you need to kind of like look a little deeper. Do you know what could cause a headache or a migraine at the end of a period? Could it be iron is low even if the bleeding wasn't that heavy? I wouldn't say headaches are usually caused by iron being low. A lot of times it's caused by estrogen, which that is when estrogen starts to rise. So I sometimes get headaches like day 5 of my cycle or 4 of my cycle. Which is usually kind of the last day or the second to last day of my period and my cycle. And I usually take vitamin E for that and 1 aspirin, which kind of helps with the inflammation. A lot of times headaches are due to estrogen, or they're due to the imbalanced blood sugar. So sometimes when we're on our period, we don't feel as hungry. So that's something that, like, were you getting enough nourishment? Sometimes certain days of our cycle, we need more fuel. So make sure you are like keeping your blood sugar balanced. For me, and everyone's gonna like freak out, but what's new? For me, the best fix for a headache is a Red Bull. Red Bull has like 80 milligrams of caffeine in it, has a little bit of sugar, which is not like, I'm not a huge fan of white sugar, but sugar is sugar. I like sugar with minerals. Dude, calm down. It has a lot of B vitamins in it, and then it has taurine. And all those things help with bile flow and helping with the gut. So I like a Red Bull when I am like in a pinch and I have a horrible headache. But vitamin E is also really helpful. Doing a coffee enema is also helpful. Doing 2 raw carrots. So sometimes I'll like munch down on 2 raw carrots really quickly. But a lot of times headaches have to do with estrogen. and or low blood sugar. Okay, so Ivy's question is coming next, but I have to actually end my live so that Instagram doesn't cut me off, and I'm gonna go live again for another 30 minutes. So Ivy asks, in FN, are the water filters you recommend mainly different from other filters for removing fluoride? And I will answer that at my next live. See you guys in a second.